Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial video. Today we are going to revisit our project here from last month, and I will be showing you how to do some decreases to finish it, how to weave in your ends when you're done, and the difference between an invisible decrease and a regular decrease. To start off, let's go over what the differences are between an invisible decrease and a standard decrease. So first, I'm going to show you the standard decrease. It's important to know that whether you're doing a standard decrease or an invisible decrease, what you're going to essentially be doing is taking two stitches and making them one. So say that we wanted to do a decrease here on this. I'm just going to go ahead and join some yellow yarn here. When you are doing a standard decrease, you will be working the stitches very much the way that you do a standard single crochet. So here we've done 4 single crochets, and say that we want to decrease here. What we're going to be doing is taking these 2 stitches and turning them into one single stitch. When you're doing a regular decrease, you're going to insert your hook in your first stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. Now, stop. Instead of yarning over and pulling through these 2 loops like you typically would, you are instead going to insert your hook into the next available stitch. So you can see here that this yellow yarn, that's a tongue twister, is going right here. So this would be the next available stitch. So you're going to insert your hook, keeping those 2 loops on, yarn over, and pull through. You have 3 loops on your hook, and if you take a look, here you'll see that you have gone through 2 stitches. See? 1, 2. Now is when you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. I'm going to make a couple of normal single crochets just so you can see how it looks and what it's doing. You can actually already see how it's kind of pulling the square together, because the decrease decreases how many stitches you have. If you look here now and ignore the cat hair, you'll see we've done 4 regular single crochets and then a standard decrease, which means that there are 2 stitches. However, from the top, there's only 1 completed stitch. I'll show you again what the standard decrease looks like, and then we'll do the invisible one. So let's say that we want to decrease across these 2 stitches here. 1, 2. This is just for a single crochet decrease. If you wanted to do a half double crochet or a double crochet decrease, it would be a little bit different. If that is something that you would like me to show you in more detail, please let me know. I'd be happy to do it. Go into this stitch here, yarn over and pull through. So we have 2 loops on our hook. Instead of completing this like you would if it was a normal single crochet, you're going to work into the next available one and insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. You now have 3 loops on. You can see again how you've worked through 2 stitches. You can also see from the top really easily. And now you'll yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So what you've done is you've taken 2 stitches and you've made it into 1 stitch. So that's how you do a standard regular decrease. But what about if you're working with amigurumi? You can kind of see here that those decrease stitches are, well, they kind of stand out because of the way that like the bars lay compared to the others. So if you wanted to make it blend in, let me show you how you would do that. You might remember this is our ball from last month, and we were doing a 2 single crochet increase the last time before we did our rounds of single crochet. So we'll now be doing a 2 single crochet decrease. We're going to take our little running stitch marker here, move it to the front, okay, and we're going to do 2 normal single crochets. You can do a normal decrease here, just like I had shown you, and it would look like that. Or you can do what is known as an invisible decrease. When you look at the top of your stitches, you'll see that there's 2 bars. This is your front loop, and this back here is the back loop. The front loop always faces you and the back loop faces away. So when you are doing an invisible decrease, you are going to work through the front loops only of the next 2 stitches. So instead of going through both stitches, you are going to go through the front loop here and then into the next one. You will then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops and then yarn over and pull through like a normal single crochet. So an invisible decrease hides that decrease in those front loops much nicer. You can see that that looks like a typical single crochet, and it doesn't have the 2 bars that this one does. See how that has that 1, 2 look? This just has 1. So let's do it again. Don't worry, we've got 6 times to do it up close and personal. We're going to work into our next available stitch, yarn over, pull through. We're going to do 2 single crochets, and now we're going to do our invisible decrease. So again, when you're looking at the stitches from like the top, you can see your front loop right there, front loop on our hook, front loop on our hook. So we should have 3 stitches. You're going to yarn over and pull through those 2 front loops only, and then yarn over and pull through just like a normal single crochet. When you're looking at this from the front, you can see it actually blends in a lot nicer than the way the standard decrease works. So let's do it again. Remember, we got to do this 6 times. So 2 single crochets, just as normal, and now a decrease. So in the front loop, yarn over, pull through those 2 front loops, and then yarn over and pull through those 2. So you'll complete this all the way around until you get to your stitch marker, and I'll show you what to do next. All right, so now when we look at our ball, you can see that it's starting to curve again, but this time it's getting smaller. This is how we make our sphere. So we're going to move our running stitch marker to the back, and we're going to do the next round, which is going to be a single crochet and then a decrease. If you remember, we are reversing the way that we had done the increases when we do the decreases. So we're going to single crochet, and we're going to now do a decrease. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. At this point, you might be noticing that like this is getting a little bit small, and we haven't really done anything about the inside and the filling. So let me show you what I do, and we will add some stuffing now before we continue doing our decreases. You're going to grab some polyfil. You're going to take a small bit, since it's a small item. Make sure that you tuck in that end from when you started. There you go. Get it right out of the way. And now you go ahead and you add your stuffing. If you're having trouble getting your stuffing in, you can always use a chopstick, a pencil, something like that to kind of help push it into the corners when you're making more detailed amigurumi. Sometimes there are little spots that you need to get stuffing into, and it's not a perfect ball, so you might need a little tool to kind of help poke the stuffing in where it needs to go. Once you have your item with a little bit of stuffing, and remove the cat hair, we can continue. Now this one is a little bit trickier. So if you remember, we last did a 1 single crochet, then a decrease. So this time, all that we're going to do is decrease. So we aren't even doing a single crochet. We are going to start here in that first stitch and do a decrease immediately. Yarn over, pull through those, pull through there. We're going to once again immediately do a decrease. We're not doing any single crochets this round, just decreases. And you're going to keep going around. It's going to get smaller and smaller. If you find that you need to add a little bit more stuffing, now is the time to do it. I typically will go halfway around and then I'll add just a tiny bit more stuffing. This is also when I typically will end up using a chopstick or tool to help get stuffing in, because it's a lot more difficult when it gets to be really small. All right, so we have 2 more decreases to do. You can see there's 4 stitches left. So let's do these last 2 decreases. Now we are actually at 6 stitches, which if you remember is how many we started with, which means we have officially finished this ball. You now get to do the very satisfying pulling out of the running stitch marker. See how nice and easy that comes out? And there's no real sign of where it was on your project. You're now going to take some scissors and you're going to cut a small tail here. If you were going to be attaching this to something else, you might want to use a longer tail. I just pull this right through on the final stitch, which closes it. And now I'm going to show you how to finish closing this and how to weave in ends on your amigurumi projects so that way they don't come unraveled. First, you're going to need a tapestry needle. I like metal ones, and I typically use bent ones for my amigurumi assembly. I find that it's easier to hook into stitches and around round things. I made these myself. You can buy ones that are pre-bent. You can also use a hairdryer or a heat gun to heat up some and bend them. Of course, that runs the risk of breaking, so, you know, do that at your own discretion. Now that we have our yarn on our needle, what we're going to do is we're going to go around and pick up the front loops again of the 6 stitches that are left. So this is stitch 1, and we're going to pull it all the way through. We'll go into stitch 2. So from the front to the back, or I should say, I guess, from the front towards the middle. 3, 4, 5. And of course our last one, 6. Once you've done that, all you have to do is give a gentle pull and it closes right up. By going through those front loops, it closes it up just like it was at the beginning. Isn't that cool? Don't cut this yet, because what you're going to want to do is weave in this end. Some people I know will tie knots, some people just cut it, they don't do anything, but if you want your projects to be secure, you're going to want to weave in your ends. On a round project or an amigurumi, I typically will just go in right near where the yarn ended, and I'll just kind of go down a little bit to where it's more flat, and then pull it through. You're then going to use your needle to weave under a few of these stitches. I'm trying to like poke through a little bit so you can see, but what you're going to do is just go a little bit in one direction and pull it through. Oops, that happens quite a bit, the yarn falling off the needle. I learned many years ago that the best way to do it is to weave your ends back and forth 3 times. Now I know that seems like overkill. I get it. You don't have to do that, but it just gives me peace of mind, especially because I make things as gifts or I make things to sell. So what I do then, once I've gone, so I went this way first, I'm now going to go back the other way. I'll go down a row typically from where I had just woven in, and the same thing. What you're doing is you're basically just wiggling the needle in between the stitches, okay? So you're kind of trying to split the yarn a little bit because it makes it a little bit sturdier, so you can see there, and then you'll pull it through. So you've now gone this way, that way, and you're going to go back this way one more time. That's how I do it, because an item can't be pulled in 3 directions at the same time. So even if it was kind of stretched this way, it got loose in one spot, it can't get loose in 3 directions at the same time. So it's just what I've always done. Again, it's probably overkill, but you know, I'd rather that. So I typically go back up, right? I started up here, and then I went down, and then normally I'll go back up again just to try and lock in those stitches, or to lock in the end as well. So I just go, you know, 3 or 4 stitches, pull it through. Now you can just snip it here. I typically will go and just feed it through on the opposite side, just so that way the end doesn't pop out when I cut it close. So now we'll go ahead and give this a little trim, and there you have it. A squishy little ball. But that's the basics. That's the magic ring. That is the increases, that is the decreases, that is how you weave in your ends and your running stitch marker. Now I do know that someone was asking how you weave ends in on a flat piece, so let me show you that really quickly, because it's the same thing. So with things like squares, have a magic ring in the middle, I typically will just go around a few times. And again, you can kind of almost hear it grabbing into the fibers, and that's a good thing. You don't want it to go through super smoothly. You want it to grab and hold, that way it doesn't come undone. So I'll just go around a couple of times in a circle, and then with this, since it's not a 3-dimensional object, you can't really like weave it through so that the end isn't cut close to where it came out. So I'll just give it a little trim right here, and that's that. If you have something on the end here, like this guy, same thing, thread your yarn. And what you can actually do is, instead of going this way, you can also go this way. You can also just go down a stitch. So like this is a double crochet square. So you can just also go down that way. If you don't really have the ability to run it left to right, you can go up and down. What I do with this now is I will, just like I did before, I'll go back and forth on this like 3 times. So you can see it came out from this side. I'm going to go back on this side and try and once again split through. There we go. So you can see it came out over there. It's going back here. We pull it through, and then I'll do the same thing one more time. Down we go on the opposite side. So again, making sure that we're not going back right where we came from, but close enough so that it's not leaving a big gap. And there you go. Give it a little trim, and your ends are woven in, and they're nice and secure, and they shouldn't come undone. I mean, nothing is perfect, but in theory, they should be nice and secure. It doesn't alter your work. Same thing with our little ball here. And that's it. That's all that you need to know to start and to finish a beginner amigurumi project. Now, in the future, I have been thinking about possibly doing Patreon exclusive video tutorials that will allow you to make some amigurumi. If that's something that you're interested in, let me know. I hope that this video was super helpful for you and that you have learned something new. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Don't hesitate to reach out. I hope that this made the process seem a little bit less scary. I know how overwhelming these things can be when you're a beginner. I hope that this was easy to understand and that you'll give it a shot. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out. I appreciate you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your time zone, and I will see you again next month for a new tutorial. Bye! Focus, we don't know her.